Hello and welcome to the Hunter's Quest podcast. It's good to be with you guys today. I'm excited because today is our first ever YouTube video podcast. So it's been a lot of hard work getting this going and producing these video podcasts, but it's something I want to do for you guys. I think it's going to be cool to be able to see our guests and interact more and just have another platform to share the podcast on. So if you're listening to this, feel free to go over to YouTube and check out this podcast on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. You can find a link to that in the link tree in my Instagram bio, or just search Hunter McWaters in YouTube and you should find the channel. And please subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything that's going on, future podcasts, bonus content, and also, next year we'll be releasing our first hunt films from Kodiak Island and from Wyoming, Lord willing. So excited for all that's in the works, and I appreciate you guys being on this journey with me. Hope you guys are getting some good stuff out of this content and enjoying. So anyway, today is a cool podcast. So as a lot of you guys know, I did draw a Wyoming antelope tag this year. So me, my cousin, my dad, and my uncle are all heading out to Wyoming in October for an antelope hunt. I'm really excited about that hunt. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I know some guys listening out there may have also drawn an antelope tag. Maybe it's your first hunt. Maybe it's, maybe you're an experienced antelope hunter. Or, maybe Western hunting is something you would like to get into. And if that's the case, antelope is a great place to start. It's a very approachable hunt. It's a very fun hunt, and something that me and my guests talk about today a lot. So I want to encourage you guys, if you haven't done an antelope hunt, or you're looking to start getting into Western hunting, consider that. I would go ahead and buy yourself a bonus point or preference point, whatever it is, this year, which I believe those are available this month in July for next year. Or continue to build those points and get on an antelope hunt next year. And if you're going on one this year, this podcast has got a lot of great information for antelope hunters, whether you've done it before or it's your first time. I'm actually going to talk to Trail Kreitzer today from GoHunt. And Trail is a really awesome guy. He was really helpful to me personally as I was looking for what units I was going to put in for this antelope hunt. He didn't know me. I am a GoHunt insider, which is something you guys should consider and check out, for planning your Western hunts and that kind of thing. But I reached out to Trail on Instagram actually, and ended up talking to him on the phone. He was super helpful about, picking units and draw strategy and stuff like that. So Trail's a really cool guy, a really good guy, fun to talk to, very knowledgeable about antelope hunting and all things Western hunting. But really experienced antelope hunter. And so we talk about antelope behavior, e-scouting, how to approach a unit when you first get in, hunting pressure, how to get away from hunting pressure, land access issues and questions and all that stuff. So we really hit a wide variety of topics that is really applicable to almost any Western hunting, not just antelope hunting. So like I said, whether you're an experienced hunter, a new hunter, or you got an antelope hunt planned or not, I think no matter what, you guys will enjoy this episode and get some good information about it from it. And if you haven't seen, Trail's got a really cool video that they just produced and put out on YouTube through GoHunt called Front Runner, which is a bow hunt that him and a newer hunter did, that he took out and kind of showed her the ropes, and they end up both killing nice antelope. So again, this episode is packed full of great information. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you feel so inclined, if you're listening, again, head over to YouTube, you can watch the interview and subscribe, and be looking out for all the content we got cutting down the line. So excited about it. So let's just jump into this episode here, and I hope you guys enjoy. All right, see you on the next one. So I'm here with my guest, Trail Kreitzer from GoHunt. How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we had a little technical difficulty. I had to hit record twice, but thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. It's good to put a face with a Instagram DM or a name, right?
Yeah. And we talked before. Trail helped me out as I was picking antelope units. So that's something I want to talk about. But before we kind of get going, do you mind just giving folks a quick, brief intro, bio of yourself and what you're all about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my name's Trail Kreitzer. I live here in southern Utah. I work at GoHunt.com. Been here about 4 years, I believe, at this point. So
nice.
Primarily, I came on with them as kind of a research manager, and then I helped out in the gear shop. It's like, picking gear that we carry in the gear shop. And I did that for 3.5 years. And then just recently, probably like the last 3 or 4 months, I've moved more into the gear shop side of things. So I'm primarily involved in buying and procuring gear that we carry in the gear shop. And then, obviously if you kind of pay attention and follow along with GoHunt, the content that we put out, I do a lot of content with the YouTube stuff, do some writing for GoHunt. My background, I guess you could say, is, hunting. I grew up hunting in the West. My dad and mom, they moved from Indiana, and when they first moved out here, they moved to this little town in southern Utah. And kind of one of the first friends that I was telling you kind of how I got my name. I get asked that quite a bit if my name is actually Trail. But yeah, my dad, kind of one of the first friends that befriended him was this old cowboy named Boo Johnson. And he had a boy named Trail, so they liked the name.
Oh, nice.
Trail, so that's kind of how it stuck. But yeah, my dad and mom moved out here primarily because my dad just loved the mountains and he wanted to hunt the West.
Nice.
And so my upbringing with hunting was a major part of that, hunting and fishing both. So I've been hunting for, as long as I can remember, to be honest. We lived a very rural community. My closest neighbor was a mile.
Oh, nice.
So I did lots of trapping, fishing, hunting. And then kind of moved in when I kind of was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a living. I knew I kind of wanted to be outside and involved in the outdoors in some space. And so I went to school to become a wildlife biologist. So finished my degree there. While I was going to school, I worked for the Fish Lake National Forest. I was doing like a lot of habitat restoration work for those guys. And then took a job with Game and Fish in Utah, and I worked that for about 7 years. And I was the assistant habitat manager here in southern Utah. So cool. I did that for about 7 years, and it was a great job. I loved it. I loved, the satisfaction of like getting to see these landscape scale habitat projects completed, and seeing the kind of that benefit to habitat and what that did for the herd health and my hunting opportunities as well. But ultimately, I always just loved hunting, and I loved big game hunting, and I wanted to do more of it. Yeah. And that's kind of what drew me into the hunting industry. So, like I said, I made the switch over to GoHunt. I've been here for about 4 years, and things are going great. Primarily a bow hunter. Love to bow hunt, but really I'll hunt anything.
Nice, man. Yeah. So, if you guys are not familiar with GoHunt is a service that helps guys with draw odds and picking units and draw strategies and all that. It's a really cool community, very helpful. I'm a member of that. And also they have a gear shop, as Trail was mentioning. And, it's gear that's handpicked by probably Trail himself. So you can kind of rest assured that anything on there is probably at least decent stuff, and some better than others, but it's nice to have that stuff that's kind of handpicked by hunters. So I think y'all are doing a great job with the gear shop. And as far as content goes, I just saw that film you guys put out, Front Runner. That was great, man.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good hunt. I mean, we're going to talk more about antelope hunting, but I
Yeah,
love antelope hunting. They've become like one of my very favorite animals to hunt. They're such a cool animal. I don't know that there's like a, more of an iconic Western big game animal than antelope. They're so unique, endemic.
exactly.
It's just a cool animal. They're a fun hunt. Uh, Depending on where you're at, super game rich. I mean, Wyoming, for example, where that front runner hunt was filmed, tons of antelope.
Yeah,
It's a fun hunt.
yeah, man. So again, like I said, that's something that, well, really I want to focus this episode on is antelope hunting because so like I said, going back months ago, I was putting some stuff out on Instagram asking people if anybody knew anything about antelope units and stuff like that, because this was my first trip out to Wyoming to antelope hunt, and I'm kind of leading a group with my dad, my cousin, and my uncle. And so my cousin's kind of more of a casual hunter. He likes it, but and then my uncle, this is like a bucket list for him thing, and we're all really close. So, and it's something that they probably wouldn't have been able to pull off without kind of somebody taking the lead on it. So they're really excited, and I'm excited to kind of be able to lead this trip. But anyway, someone said, "Hey, I know this guy Trail at GoHunt. He knows all about the stuff. He's really helpful." So I mean, Trail didn't know me from Adam, but I think I messaged you on Instagram and end up having a phone call, and he actually helped me come up with a strategy to pick units, and actually was drawn for my first choice unit out there. Only on 1 point entered the special draw, but super stoked to go out there. So appreciate your help with that, man. That was big time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna be in unit like somewhere. It's like east central ish, kind of Casey Casper area, part of the state. So I'm not gonna give the actual number on air, but anyway, so looking forward to that, and that's what I want to jump in. So, kind of just starting from the beginning, man. Like, why do you think antelope hunting is? Because I've heard before that it's a great kind of way to get started in the Western hunting world, or like in your film, you took out a newer hunter. So, why do you think antelope is good for that?
Yeah, and I've done that before. I mean, my boy, he just turned 16, but a couple of years ago, like his first hunt, I chose antelope for him, as a brand new hunter. And then, again, Jill's a relatively new hunter. And as we sat down as a group to put together like film schedules for the year, we all kind of concurred that we wanted to help a new hunter in the office getting started. And Jill showed some personal interest in hunting. And I think it's a great hunt for a new hunter. One, because it's not as physically demanding as maybe
Yeah,
a lot of Western big game hunting is. If you get involved in elk hunting, it's super physically demanding, especially if you want to find success. I mean,
yeah,
archery elk hunting is very demanding, and in a lot of ways, it's some of the most physically demanding stuff I've ever done. Packing out a bull elk, breaking down a bull elk, and packing that out on your back, 5 or 6 miles is real effort. I mean,
yeah,
you'll feel pain, and so for one, that's a real physically demanding hunt. Same for mule deer hunting in a lot of cases. So in that regard, I think antelope's a great hunt because it's not necessarily as physically demanding. I mean, it's mostly low rolling country. You don't have to be in, peak physical condition, although, it helps. I mean, it helps to
sure,
be in good shape for any Western big game hunt, but so that's one reason I think is it's not necessarily so physically demanding. Two, like I said earlier, it's game rich. I mean, if you're hunting Wyoming, most areas in Wyoming, if you're willing to do a little bit of hiking and put your binoculars to work and do some glassing, I mean, you're going to see animals, a lot of animals. I mean,
yeah.
I hunted Wyoming, I want to say on a different unit, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I shot a buck the evening of the second day. And I think that was the 65th buck I'd looked at in 2 days.
Wow.
So, plenty of animals, which is great. I mean, if you're a new hunter and you want to get them engaged and keep them kind of, active and, excited about the hunt and
Yeah,
like waking up every morning, it's great that you're always seeing animals, right?
sure.
And then third, the opportunities for stock, especially if you're bow hunting, which, bow hunting antelope can be frustrating, especially if you want to spot and stock antelope.
Yeah,
But it's a fun hunt in that you can literally hunt all day long. I mean, you can you can stalk from morning till dark. I mean, you can really put in a bunch of stalks. So in that ways, it's really exciting. It's fun. It's fast paced. And then, the animal themselves are really neat looking animal.
Yeah.
They're a cool animal. They're very pretty. And then they taste great. I mean, the meat's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, people tell you that people will say all the time, like, oh, you can't eat antelope. It tastes disgusting. But I'm here to tell you that, like, my kids will eat antelope hands down, no questions asked, and it's awesome. It's all about how you take care of it. So, I mean, kind of for those reasons, I think it's an awesome hunt for a new hunter.
Yeah. I mean, I hear the same thing about white-tailed deer. Like, oh, deer meat's gross. It's like, no, it's delicious if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say antelope is amazing, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man. So that's really cool. So let's kind of I'd love to start just from the beginning. So I know probably several of my listeners may have drawn a Wyoming tag or another state tag, and just for myself, like I'd love to learn too. So just starting now, I know kind of the area I'm going, and I'm starting to get on GoHunt and start do some e-scouting. So what are kind of some of the types of terrain features or vegetation that you would kind of want to start keying in on as far as e-scouting for antelope?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think first and foremost, the thing that I look for in regards to antelope habitat is water. So water sources, and then antelope are primarily open country animals. So you get maybe into like some of the other like southern states, like you get into Arizona. I mean, there are some areas where there's a little bit of pinyon and juniper, and they'll kind of intermix in that country with some grassland. But primarily, like they're an open country animal. When you get up to Wyoming, most of those bucks, or most of those antelope in general, are just going to be out in those open low rolling sage, broom snake weeds and other kind of. They're kind of a browser, they'll go along and just like nip any kind of low growing vegetation. So mostly open country, but primarily water. Water is the first and foremost thing that I look for in a landscape when I'm scouting for an antelope hunt. So
now,
for
will
example,
that be like standing water or more like rivers or both, or?
Mostly standing water in that country, right? So there's a lot of that country that it intermixes with open grazing for cattle. So a lot of BLM state land will be leased out by cattlemen or grazers, and they'll run their cattle across those landscapes. And a lot of those ponds will just be like freestanding water that they maintain for livestock on open range. They'll use running water if there is running water. It's just the type of terrain that they occur in. There typically isn't a lot of running water.
Gotcha.
So, first and foremost, I mean, for example, I've got an Arizona antelope tag this year myself. So the first thing that I do is pull open the map, and I really start picking apart the landscape, looking specifically for water. And once you find water sources, I'll drop a pin on the map, but when I get to that unit to start scouting it or hunting it, those are the first places I go. I hit those water sources, I see if there's water, and then I'm scanning, as I'm driving in and out to those areas, and I'm just looking, glassing for antelope. So, low rolling cedar, sage, mostly sage, open grassland, and then, like I said, water is the big factor for antelope.
Okay. So you mentioned like BLM and state land. So, as I've been doing my research and stuff, like, especially on the Wyoming Game and Fish site, like on the unit descriptions, it's very like doom and gloom about like access stuff. But like when I pull up the map of my unit, and I think it says, it has a breakdown, the percentage of public land per unit, which I think mine is like somewhere around 50% public land. But I know that even on some high percentage public land units, access can be an issue in terms of crossing over private to get into it. But on my specific unit, I'm looking at tons of land that's labeled on the legend, BLM and state. Mm-hmm. And so is all of that fair game? And if so, why is everything telling me access is a problem? Because it looks like a ton of land.
Yeah. So any BLM or state land is huntable if you can access it. And I think when you look at unit breakdowns, like if you're looking on our platform or if you're looking on their hunt planner or any other state's game and fish hunt planner site, typically what they'll give you is a public land percentage for that unit. when you think about that, you might see a unit and let's say it's 60% public land, and you think, I don't understand why, access would be an issue. But then you have to kind of take that further step and think how much of that unit is actually antelope habitat. Like how much of that is that low country where I'm going to actually find antelope. And when you dive into that, maybe there is only 15 or 20% of that is state and BLM. So there's like that next step in research that you've got to take into account, as well as just looking at the simple public land percentage. I think, if people are trying to plan a hunt purely based on public land percentage as a whole, you're probably not seeing a full picture of what that unit actually is. You got to kind of take it the next step and kind of break that unit down and think of it as in terms of how much of that land is actually, antelope habitat. I'm actually be able to find antelope on, because, you may have some of those units where you get up into some, pine or aspen or timbered country where you're probably not going to find any antelope. So that's worth taking into consideration. The other thing about antelope hunting is I think we've become accustomed to the fact that, like, oh, it's an easy hunt, that you're just going to drive down a road, on public land, you're going to glass up a buck and, make a short stalk and shoot it. And it can certainly be that case. If you look at draw odds, for example, in Wyoming, draw odds are almost totally tied to the amount of public land that's accessible in a unit. It's not necessarily, although there is a little bit of trophy potential kind of mixed in that, but it's mostly public land access and percentage. In units like you, Drew, and other units in Wyoming, it's not that there is not public land. There is public land. You just may have to end up finding, the sliver that touches a county road or a highway, or, maybe you have to make some phone calls to, be able to access a road that then touches some public land, but then be willing to hike into that public land.
Right.
For example, that hunt that I took my kid on, at the time we drew that as a second choice. That unit has tons of BLM, it has tons of public land to hunt, but there was only 2 spots in that entire unit that I could think of when I looked at the maps that actually touched public access, so a county road or a highway. Once we parked there and we walked out into that BLM, and I killed my buck probably 2 miles, and I think his was maybe 2.5 miles. But after we got out into that, it was just, a sea of BLM and just antelope all over the place.
Wow. So basically, if you're not lazy and willing to walk a couple miles, that opens up tons of doors.
That's it. Yeah. And you've got to, you've got to do the extra step. You got to do the research, is hunting across the West is increasingly becoming more popular. And we're certainly seeing that when you look at the number of people that are applying in the West for all species, not just antelope. You just got to be willing to dig in and do like that extra bit of research. And then like you're saying, the legwork.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, man. To be honest, I like, I'm in pretty good shape and I like hiking. So I kind of like, I don't balk at having to walk a couple miles. Like I actually would almost prefer that than just like jumping out of the truck and shooting something, So I like that kind of adventure and exploration aspect of it. So a couple of days ago, I got in the mail one of these postcards like, hey, we found out you drew your unit. Like, call us. Would you recommend calling these guys or looking into that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I'm in favor of exploring any and all options, you know, to take a look. Yeah. Give them a bell and see what they're offering, it may be worth it to you. It may not. That's one thing about, I talk to so many people, yourself included, a lot of GoHunt Inside members. I have a lot of people that'll DM me and ask me questions about, about hunting across the West. And that's like one thing that it's given me the ability to talk to a whole bunch of different people and find out that like everybody has different objectives, for what their hunt is. Some people only want to hunt public land and they want to do it themselves. They want to do a DIY hunt. And there's definitely space for people to do that. There's some people that want, a guided hunt and they want to go out and have a guide kind of show them the ropes so that they learn and figure it out. And then they can, do it themselves in the future. And then, there's some people that, trophy matters. Like they want a Boone and Crockett 80-inch antelope buck, and if that's the case, there's a lot of those units that are relatively easy to draw, where some of that land may be inaccessible to the public, where, if you're able to go on a guided hunt, or you're willing to pay a pretty decent trespass fee, you may open yourself up some opportunity for a trophy buck.
Yeah.
So I would say it's the first question that I always ask anybody is like, what is your objective for your hunt?
Yeah. Well,
based on your objectives, then we can kind of tailor it from there.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we definitely want to do it DIY. I'm not opposed to getting on private. Would rather not if I didn't have to, but I'm not opposed to it. You mentioned trespass fees. What's like a ballpark trespass fee? Kind of what do people usually charge for that kind of thing?
I don't know. I wouldn't even dare say at this point. I've never done one, so
Okay.
I couldn't say.
That's okay.
I couldn't say. And then this year's different. I mean, it's post COVID, I think a lot of people thought that maybe there would be less interest and people kind of pull back from applications, but we're not seeing that. We're seeing more people going out and applying and hunting. Where Canada's borders were shut, and there's maybe some of those people that would have spent money to gone to Canada and hunt deer and moose and sheep and anything else. They're not spending their dollars there, so maybe now they're buying landowner permits, or they're buying guided antelope, deer, and elk hunts. I think there's more of those types of folks that are out looking for hunts. So I don't know. It's tough to say. I couldn't answer honestly.
That's all right. I'll just give them I'll give a call and see what's going on. But and luckily for me, man, like I'm not a trophy hunter, at least not at this point in my life. I mean, the tags we have are any antelope. Yeah, I'd want to get a good representation, kill a mature animal if possible, but mainly I want to get my uncle to fill his tags. It's like a bucket list thing, and maybe get some cool, I'm going to try to film it, so get some cool footage and fill some tags, and I'd be happy with, just a nice representation. So not too worried about numbers, but and
then just the landscape. I like antelope hunting. I like the landscape that they exist in. That big open country. You're going to have phenomenal sunrises, phenomenal sunsets. If you hunt with it sounds like it's a family hunt. I mean, it's a cool camping experience, because you don't have to necessarily go out and spike out and backpack hunt like you will for maybe elk or deer.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's really great in the fact that you can have a really solid, fun base camp. You can, do good meals at night and just kind of hang out and have that entire experience. So, I mean, as a whole, it's just a fun hunt. It's a fun hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it, man. We might actually just rent like an Airbnb and just kind of day hunt just for logistic, whatever. And I don't know, my old man's not too big on camping, honestly, anyway, I think anymore, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to just the family time and just the adventure and just hanging out, man. Even if we didn't fill tags, it'd still be an awesome trip,
Yeah. The year that I took my boy up there, I think he was 13 at the time. We just stayed in Casper, and we stayed at a Motel 6,
Oh, nice.
We slept in the morning. They're like a lot of animals that were active in the morning, but you can hunt all day if you want,
Okay.
So it wasn't like this high pressure to get out there first thing in the morning. So, I mean, there were mornings that we slept in, we ate McDonald's drive-thru on the way back. We got home in the evening in time to watch playoff baseball.
Nice, man.
We took some board games and we played, board games in the evening and stuff, and just kind of hung out. But yeah, I love that. I mean, I love the fact, I mean, for me anyway, my entire fall gets stacked up with a lot of hunts that are, more adventure style hunts. I mean, Alaska moose or Alaska caribou, or, elk hunting where it's a 10-day backpack hunt. Those antelope hunts where you can kind of just hang out with your friends and family and, enjoy some quality time with them. Man. It's awesome.
Just some low pressure, good old fun hunting.
Yep.
That's awesome. Sure. So yeah, that was, you kind of just mentioned it, but that was something that I wanted to ask you about, was kind of, antelope behavior. So, do you find they're more crepuscular like deer, where you got to like bust out there at sunrise and then it's kind of boring in the middle of the day? Or are you like, I think you said you're kind of able to hunt them all day. What's that kind of like?
Yeah, I would say that they're more. I mean, they're like a deer and elk, where they're going to be more active in the morning and the evening. They're going to be up moving and feeding. They rut primarily like late August through September is kind of that main time frame. Is you see those bucks that are herded up with does and really see kind of some of that rut activity. But you'll see bucks with groups of does. I mean, all year. I mean, August through October. Um, I think we hunted late August last year when we were archery hunting, and we were still seeing bucks, with groups of bucks together, still kind of coordinated up little bachelor herds and stuff. But yeah, I would say that they are up on their feet more in the morning and the evening. But the thing about antelope is that they're not searching out like heavy timber to bed during the day, right?
Right.
So it's not like you still can't glass them up midday. So if you want to sleep in and take, a morning or two off and kind of get some sleep, and then you roll out later in the morning, you probably still see some antelope on their feet, but you do have the opportunity to still cruise the ridges and kind of look and just glass antelope up, and you'll see them bedded.
Cool.
So I mean, they're most active in morning and evening, but you'll be able to hunt and glass them all day.
Yeah. And so how have you found that weather kind of affects their movement?
Like if you get a lot of snow, like if you start hunting in October, that hunt that I did with my kid was in October, and there was a bunch of snow, and it did feel like they were kind of pushing off into, patches of vegetation that was a little bit taller. We've had probably 8-10 inches at times in different areas. So they're looking for like the tops of the vegetation that's kind of sticking up out of the snow. And there was some movement in that regard. But primarily, I mean, they'll move a little bit to weather. They'll bed longer, just like an elk or a deer would, but there's not a ton of movement. I mean, not a lot of difference, I would say, in weather. It's not really until you get later in the season, like in, past postseason, especially in Wyoming, where you get those winds that push snow across the landscape and it really starts to build up, that you see those antelope move off into some of that lower country. So, I mean, it's not like a deer and elk where you're going to see major differences in weather and movement.
Okay. And you touched on it a little bit, but, so I know you said they rut kind of August, September. So our hunt is going to be actually, I think, like the third week in October. So, what should we be kind of expecting in terms of behavior, or what to look for in terms of, that kind of stuff that time of year?
Yeah, you'll probably see, groups of does and fawns, and you may see some bucks, intermixed with those, maybe a few younger bucks. You'll probably start to see some of the bigger, more mature bucks moved off either, in bachelors or off by themselves. The buck that my kid shot was right in a group of does, but then the buck I shot was kind of off of it on his own, and we were seeing a few more bucks, especially some of the bigger bucks, I think, kind of off on their own. Solitary ones, twos, maybe small groups of 3. So it won't vary a ton, but you'll see maybe some of those older bucks kind of off by themselves or in smaller bachelor groups, kind of moved off.
Okay, cool. So all right, so we got that kind of stuff. Now let's fast forward to like flying. So we're gonna fly. So our season opens on a Friday afternoon. I planned it so we're gonna fly in on like a Sunday and start hunting the Monday after to kind of hopefully get out of some of the pressure.
Yep.
So anyway, it's Monday. We're heading out to the unit, first time, boots on the ground. Just from like a high level, what do you do in that first day? How are you starting off?
Yeah, I'd say I definitely agree with like your timing. So I would try to hunt middle of the week, if you can, especially those units that are relatively easy to draw. They're going to get more pressure on the weekends for sure. So Saturdays and Sundays, you're definitely going to have more people in the field. So I like hunting, midweek, Monday to Thursday, Friday. You'll probably still see some folks, but you'll definitely have less pressure midweek. So I like that method. I think the first thing I would do, I mean, if you've kind of identified the unit prior to getting there and you know where the public land is and you kind of know the access roads, I would encourage you, have all those layers downloaded on your map, whether you're using a GPS or if you're using like our app on your phone. have those areas identified, the access points. And I think the first thing that I typically do is just start driving where I can. So, your unit, for example, you've got some highways and some roads that run the edges of those. I would run those highways and just start pulling over and glassing. Glassing is going to be your best friend. I mean, it really is the key to hunting antelope. Probably a lot of guys that are coming from the East or the Midwest, they may not have like a full glassing setup, like a tripod, tripod adapter, tripod head, spotting scope. I would say if you've got those things in your kit, you're going to be that much more effective. Anytime that you can get comfortable, find a seat that you're going to be able to sit for a while, an hour, and just like scan the landscape with your binoculars, you'll see a whole lot more that way than you will just flat walking and bumping animals. So that's typically the first thing I do is I just drive the roads, and I spend a lot of time with a pair of binoculars on a tripod, and I do a lot of glassing.
Yeah.
Water that time of year is probably not going to be as important. Depends on the weather you get. So if it's still warm, and it can be in October, they'll still be hitting water, especially if there's no snow. But once you start getting some cold weather and some snows, it seems like it's less important for sure.
Yeah.
Those water sources. So, primarily water sources become really important when you're archery hunting antelope. So that early season, August, September, I mean, they're going to be within a mile, 2 miles of those water sources. That's not necessarily the case as you get into like October and late seasons. So I would say, identify, the roads and really let your glass do the work.
Yeah. And what binoculars do you use when you're out there glassing for antelope? Mm-hmm. Like not necessarily brand, but like magnification power and stuff.
I mean, if you can afford to have multiple pairs of binoculars, a set of 15s is great. Like a pair of 15 Swarovski SLCs on a tripod is phenomenal for antelope hunting.
Yeah.
You can really start to pick apart a landscape with a set of 15s. I've had a pair in the past. I don't think it's necessary. I think, in my opinion, a 10x42 is a staple for any game hunter. Those around your neck, and then just throw those same binoculars up on a tripod. And I have a pair of Leica Noctivids, which it's inexpensive. It's a top end set of glass for sure. I've been a huge proponent. If you've ever listened to anything I've ever done, YouTube or any other podcast, I tell people all the time, spend your money on optics for Western big game hunting. Will it make a difference? Unequivocally, it will. You'll see things that you wouldn't otherwise.
Nice.
Get the best glass that you can afford, and I promise it will make a difference. And then, good glass lasts forever. I've got a pair of Leica. I think I've told this story before, but I convinced my wife when I was in college to use our entire tax return one year to buy a pair of binoculars. So,
how did you do that, man? That's some good work.
Yeah, but buy good glass. So I think a good pair of 10x42s, if you want to get into Western big game hunting, is a staple, and buy the best glass that you can.
Yeah.
And like I said, a tripod with a tripod adapter will make a tremendous amount of difference.
Totally. Yeah. Especially when you get those higher magnification. So I have a pair of like 8s that I use here, like East Coast or like whitetail stuff. But I went ahead and got a pair of 12s for out west, and then I have a decent spotting scope too. It's humongous, so it's not like a light backcountry one, but for this it's going to be perfect.
Right.
Are you a grid kind of glassing guy, or what's your basic glassing strategy?
Depends on the topography. For antelope hunting, I'm probably a horizontal glasser, because you have these big, long, wide open landscapes out ahead of you where you can see a really long ways. So I'll typically set the tilt, and I'll just use the pan, and I'll pan a landscape, and then I'll drop the tilt and go back and forth, back and forth. When I'm hunting deer and elk, I find that if I'm looking at a landscape, I'm often like a vertical glasser. So I'm going up, I'm moving it over, I'm coming down, up, over, back, and down. But for landscape, antelope hunting, I'm horizontal, back and forth.
Yeah, nice. Well, cool, man.
The other thing I'll say just real quick about antelope, Yeah. When it comes to glassing, and this is kind of just a tip, when I worked for the Game and Fish, we would do antelope surveys. You go out and fly in like a little 2 or 4-seater Cub plane, and
Yeah.
you fly and glass for antelope. And we had a certain number of hours in the morning where we could, you go out and you wanted to make sure that you hit that window because the color of their hide really pops in the sunlight. So as we were flying, early morning, like that, maybe 8 to 10 o'clock, 10:30 range, the sunlight just pops on those animals, and you really are able to see them well. So same thing with glassing for antelope. So that 8 to like 10 o'clock window, the sunlight just tends to catch their hide, and they really pop.
Nice. That's a good tip. Does that work kind of in the afternoon as well, turning like golden hour time?
Same thing in the afternoon. Yep. That 2 hours before sunset is kind of the same thing. That light just catches their hide and they really shine.
That's awesome. And good tip. You mentioned, just going back a little bit, you mentioned like layers on your GoHunt Maps app. Are you talking about like the BLM and state land layers? Is that what you're mentioning?
Yeah. BLM, state, roads and trails. So county roads, trails, those kinds of things.
Okay. So there's a roads layer on there too, roads and trails.
Yeah, roads and trails. You want to check those out for sure.
Nice.
One thing about Wyoming, you want to double check before you go. Just because there's a road there doesn't mean that it may be accessible. It's got to be a county road before you can use it. Because if it's a private road, you can't use it.
Yeah.
The other thing specific to Wyoming that you want to check, if you look at a lot of those units, they're checkerboarded. So you've got BLM or state land that's checkerboarded, where you've got these private sections that are in holdings between. And, corner hopping is kind of a controversial.
I've heard both ways on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of the latest is Game and Fish won't ticket you for it, but, like a state highway patrolman or state police, they can ticket you for corner hopping. So it's a gray area. There's not like I personally wouldn't do it.
Okay. Is it culturally out there kind of a taboo? Like, would you annoy some locals kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Some of those ranchers I don't think would look kindly on it. And like I said, Game and Fish has kind of turned a blind eye to it a little bit. But state law is that you can't, and you could be ticketed.
Okay. That's good to know, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't plan on corner hopping. I personally wouldn't do it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you want to be respectful and not annoy people while you're out there,
Yeah, and you really don't have to. I mean, in my experience, there's enough land, especially like if you're willing to do the research and do some hiking, that you can find some success without having to get into those gray areas.
Yeah, totally, man. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about too was just I don't even know if I've ever even seen an antelope like in the wild. So, and again, I'm not out here looking to kill a trophy with like a decent, representation and mature animal. How do you, just in a nutshell, what's your tips for judging antelope bucks?
It's like a lot of things. A big one you'll know like right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple bucks. I'll just show you.
Let's see.
Yeah, so this is a Utah buck that I killed with my bow in maybe 2013 or something, I think. But you can see like this buck is like number 6, I think, in the state of Utah for an archery.
Nice.
It's a big buck.
Pull it back a little bit so I can see the whole skull a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
He's over
Nice.
80. You get a lot of score from mass in antelope, so you're going to have 4 mass measurements as you go up. And what you're going to do is they take the total length, so from the lowest point here on the sheath to the tip here of the hook, and you divide that by 4, and you would mark it out, and then that's where you're going to get your mass measurements on that. When you're looking at a buck, like if their mass, if they look wide here, like as wide as their eye, it's a pretty massive buck.
Nice.
Tall, you can kind of look and see, how tall you think they are. Like a real tall antelope is going to be, 16 inches. Anything over 16 is super tall. And then, cutters. So your cutters here, this one's got big cutters, they call it. So they measure the distance from like the back of the horn here all around to the front here of the cutter. Obviously you get a bunch of score if those are long, right?
Mm-hmm.
So mass, cutters, and height is kind of what you're looking for. And the good thing about hunting Wyoming is you'll have a chance to look at a lot of bucks. It's like hunting whitetail or anything. Like you can tell a young buck from an old buck.
Yeah.
I would say probably one of the first things that I start to look at is mass and cutters.
Okay. So you want to look for one that's close to as wide as his eyeball, huh?
Yeah, mass. Yeah. I mean, this is that buck that I shot with, just last year that we did that film, but you can see how heavy he is through the bases. And then, an older buck, they're just like an old, whitetail or an old bull elk, they'll start to get like these bumps.
Yeah, some trash.
Yeah, some of this junk that kind of grows off.
That's a cool buck.
Yeah, super cool buck. Yeah, you can see he's got like a little extra right here.
Yeah.
Kind of
And look how wide those cutters are. They're like triangles.
Yeah, super wide through here, huh?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and he holds his mass all the way up. You can kind of see. So, those are just like some tips, but you'll know. I mean, as you start to look at those bucks, body size, that older buck, that 3-4 year old buck, he'll just look bigger.
Yeah, cool, man. Back to kind of land questions. So, in my unit, there's a couple walk-in areas. One's like 5,000 acres. What's the deal with those? And there's a wildlife management area. Are those kind of areas that you should be keying in on as far as getting away from some pressure, or are they going to be more pressured?
I think it depends on the area. I know of areas in Wyoming, not the unit that you're hunting, but I know some areas that see a lot of pressure in those units. I think it's relative to the amount of public land that's accessible in that unit. If there's not a lot of other accessible land in it, I think you're going to see more pressure in those for sure. I think it's worth looking. Those are definitely a great avenue for checking out. They have a really cool program up there in Wyoming, both walk-in access and hunter management areas. They do a really good job on their website of giving you the rules and regulations for those areas. Some of them you have to register for. Some of them have stipulations on what you can hunt and when. But all that information is available on Game and Fish's website, like on their hunt planner map. If you click on the map, they have a little red dot for it. You can click on the dot, and it'll give you the information. I think Wyoming does an excellent job at that, so I would definitely check those out.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I don't mind the prospect. In fact, I kind of like the idea of walking a little bit. So I was thinking maybe in some of those walk-in areas, you might cut down on some of the folks that just kind of want to stick to the truck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, any other tips just for like kind of getting away from the crowds a little bit?
Midday, if you're not opposed to getting up early and hunting early, I think that's a good thing, because I think a lot of people do, sleep in. They kind of over, they don't put a lot of, planning or prep maybe into antelope hunting. They sleep in, go out late. So I would say get out early, be willing to hike, put your glass to work. Those are kind of it. And then hunt, hunt weekdays.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. So just like I said, it's kind of a theme of the podcast. So I figure I might as well ask you, have you ever done, kind of shifting gears here, but you ever done much thought about, kind of your spiritual connection to hunting and how that plays into your kind of total well-being as a person?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm like a very religious person per se, but as far as like spiritual, I think my involvement in hunting and like the thing that I truly love about hunting is the connection to the landscape and the way that I feel when I'm out there. There's definitely a feeling that only exists for me in those types of experiences. The actual hunting itself, the animal, the landscape, it's hard to explain, even it's hard to put into words, but there's something about that is definitely higher than either one of those is singularly.
Totally.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a connection. I can think of a hunt that I did in New Mexico for elk. It was a solo hunt. It was a backpack hunt. I hunted backpack hunted for 10 days, by myself. I killed a good bull on like day number 9. But I remember the first 2 or 3 days into that hunt, just feeling so, tied still to like this modern world.
Yeah.
My computer, my phone.
Take some time to detach.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Day 3, like I remember very vividly this like feeling, this overwhelming feeling of like just being, connected to the landscape and just being solely focused on, 1, surviving, 1, 2, pursuing these animals. And then, the really interesting for me is the appreciation, the gratitude that I start to feel, for the individual experiences. Like, you look at a patch of wildflowers, or you stop at a creek to filter some water, and, the taste and the, the cold water, hearing a bull elk bugle, seeing a bull elk bugle, like watching the mist come up in the morning, like after a hard rain that night, and just kind of see the whole landscape come alive as the sun starts to rise, and like starting to seeing the mist, come up, and just like seeing the light catch vegetation, or, catch the glimmer of an elk antler. Like those little tiny experiences become so much more than they would, normally.
Totally.
Like it really is for me. It's like, it went from something like I enjoyed as a youth to like now something that like I look forward to every year. Like I base my whole schedule, my life, my lifestyle, everything that I do in my off time, my downtime is like kind of in preparation for those types of experiences, because they mean so much to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just tapping into something that I can't think of any other activity or experience in life that allows you to tap into something so like ancient and primal, and just speaks so deeply to us as men, or as women too, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's, I know that for me, like it's an experience that I only get from that, it's unique in that I feel that every year. Some of the best friendships, some of the best experiences, the bonds that I've felt is, finding success with another hunter, like out there hunting, grinding it out. I hunt quite a bit with Chris Neville here that works in our office, and, he and I have done some elk hunts together. I think he'd hunted for 4 or 5 years and never killed an elk. And then the first year, he and I went to Wyoming, and, he shot this bull right before dark. We ended up, it was a pretty tough blood tracking job, but then, we were able to find the elk, and just, the reaction, like it was really great for me to like step back and go back and like see what that meant to him.
Yeah.
And then the bond and like the friendship that I feel with him, through what we went through. I turned around and went on a moose hunt right after that with a guy I'd had conversations with, but I'd never really spent any time with him. He's from Alaska. We did a moose hunt for 10 days, and, we both killed 2 bulls. He and I, we kind of keep in touch loosely, but like there's a bond that was created in those 10 days that will last like my entire lifetime.
Yeah.
Like just those experiences that I could not get anywhere else.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. It's just, there's nothing else like it. And I just feel like it's something that, I feel like speaks to kind of the warrior archetype that many men have, not all men, but some men have. And, the warrior hunter thing kind of goes hand in hand. And, so yeah, anyway, there's nothing like it, but, any other like things that jump out that I didn't kind of hit with antelope hunting that you wanted to just wrap up with or anything like that?
One thing as we were talking about, is just kind of, we went back to behavior, kind of talking about antelope behavior and like how to, like stalking antelope.
Yeah.
Where your hunt is an October hunt, they're going to have been, they'll be hunted, right? There's a chance they'll be hunted. if you fly in like midweek and you hunt, you may be sitting on the back side of opening day, right? So it may have been open for a few days.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't really talk about, but I think it's worth noting, is that like in terms of senses, antelope, their eyesight's everything. So they can see. I mean, I think of if I go back to like my biology classes from college, their eyesight is like the equivalent of like an 8-power binocular.
Wow.
So they can see forever, and they pick up movement extremely well. You know, and also like they'll wind you. You know, they use their nose a little bit. Hearing is probably not like their big thing because they're out there on that open landscape all the time, used to wind and that kind of thing. So you definitely want to keep in mind though their eyesight, and like they'll pick you off from a long ways away.
Yeah.
So I think that's worth noting when you're planning your stalks. You know, use that topography to your advantage. You know, use those gullies and washes, those kinds of things to like cut the distance. And then, you know, there's a really good likelihood that you might end up doing a lot of belly crawling or crawling on your hands and knees. So I would say a good pair of knee pads is a good investment for an antelope hunter, especially in archery.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Well, dude, that brings to mind a question though, because there's a part in the film I just watched with you where you're doing a stalk, and it looks like you're like 30 yards from this buck, and you're like coming to draw, and you're like letting down, you're coming to draw, and he's just standing there looking at you. What was up with that?
We were driving along, and I glassed that buck up, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to see what happens, you know? So threw the bow up in front of my face and kind of used the top cam to cover my face. I mean, they're like any animal, you know, if they pick up a face and eyes, you know, they perceive that as a threat, right? Okay. So I just cam to like cover my face. Another thing about antelope, this is kind of an interesting tidbit, is if you walk directly at an antelope, a lot of the times they'll pick you off and they'll run. But if you want to, you can cut the distance a lot to them by walking diagonals. So if you cut the distance slowly over walking diagonals back and forth, you can often get, you know, within range and cut a bunch of distance. I know my brother lives in Wyoming. He killed a buck a few years ago with his bow by doing that over about a 2-hour period. And he cut it from like 300 yards to 55 yards.
Wow.
Just by walking diagonals very slowly at this animal. Yeah. So that's kind of a tidbit. But that buck, he just kind of hung out. You know, we had that doe. I think he was a little preoccupied.
Okay.
I got in tight on that buck. I think the closest that buck was like 43 or 48 yards or something like that. Okay. And I drew on him a couple times, and, you know, I had the opportunity. I could have shot him, but I just, you know, wasn't the buck for me.
Yeah.
But,
and he kept turning, like quartering at you too, I noticed. That's funny you mentioned that about diagonals, man. I'd noticed that, like, so I used to, you know, like stalk rabbits in my backyard with my little bow, you know, as a kid. I noticed the same thing. If you avoid eye contact and walk diagonal, they will just stand there and like look at you. You can get super close.
Yep.
It's interesting. It's like they're sensing the predatory behavior if you're going straight at them and like staring at them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And antelope are curious, you know, they'll hang out, you know, a lot of the times they'll run out 100 yards and they'll stop, and then they'll turn around and like come back, like try to see what's going on. And then, you know, before they finally decide they're going to clear country. But yeah, they're a really curious animal. So, you know, if you're slow and you're deliberate in your movements, and then, like I said, a diagonal, you know, movement towards them can be pretty effective.
Do you ever use like decoys when you're stalking or anything like that?
Yeah, I've used decoys. I can't say that I've used them super successfully. I've had some bucks that'll come in and just kind of expect it. Like they often won't close that distance within like 150 to 200 yards. I've never had that experience like where a buck just like full on runs full tilt at me with a decoy, you know, to 40 yards.
I kind of meant more like, have you ever used one like as a stalking tool, kind of like hiding behind it and walking up with it?
I have, yeah. And actually, I don't think any of the footage made it in that film, but you know, Jill and I used that quite a bit, and we were able to cut. Like I said, you know, we can get to, you know, 150 yards, but a lot of the times they're curious enough that they'll kind of keep their distance. They won't just like full out run away, but they'll kind of maintain that distance. But yeah, decoying can be effective.
Okay, this is just a random question that came to my mind, but like, out there in that country, is the landscape, is it pretty easy typically to get a prone rifle shot, or is it like difficult to get in that position? with vegetation and whatnot?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty easy to get a prone position.
Okay, that's
You
good.
know, yeah, I think a bipod, like a 7 to 13 inch bipod, one that if you had to use it as sitting, you could, like, or on a pack, or most of your shots though you can get in a prone position.
Cool.
One tip I would tell you is I shot a buck one time in Wyoming from a prone position, and I was shooting slightly uphill, and I was kind of laying in this little gully, and the angle of the gun to my face, it left a pretty good scar right there.
Oh, nice. You got bit, huh?
Yeah, from shooting uphill.
Okay.
From a prone position.
I'll be careful on that one.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to ask you about. Oh yeah, just real quick, what are your hunting plans for 2021? Got any cool hunts coming up?
Yeah, I've got a lot of tags this year. So I I started out, like I said, I think earlier I mentioned, I've got an archery antelope tag in Arizona, which
Cool.
I'm excited about. That starts the 13th of August. And then the last 10 days of August, Chris Neville and I here in the office are doing a caribou hunt. So flying caribou hunt in Alaska.
Oh, nice. When are you flying up? I'm going to be going up to Alaska on the 19th, I think.
That's it. 18th or 19th. Yeah.
Dang, that'd be wild if we were on the same flight.
Yeah. Where are you flying into?
Anchorage.
Anchorage. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll fly to Anchorage and then Anchorage out to Kotzebue. So
sweet. Okay. So I did a walk-in caribou hunt last year out of Fairbanks. This year we went to Kodiak for blacktail.
Oh, right on. I've done that hunt twice. That's a fun hunt.
I've heard. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that'd be cool. I'll keep an eye out in the airport and see if I see it.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a ton of flights. We probably will bump into each other.
That'd be cool, man.
It's funny. I bumped into people quite a few times flying in and out of Anchorage or Kodiak. You know?
Yeah. I did a podcast a few weeks ago or months ago with Brad Brooks from Argali, and he's going to be flying to Kodiak. They're going into Kodiak into the backcountry the same day we are, so we're going to link up there for dinner on the 22nd or something.
Yeah, Kodiak's a cool little town too.
Yeah. So anyway, what are you doing after Alaska? Anything else?
Yeah, so caribou, and then I've got an Idaho archery elk tag in September. So I've got 10 days, like the 15th to the 25th of September. I'll be hunting elk in Idaho.
Nice.
And then I've got Montana big game combo. So I've got the elk and the deer tag. So I think I'm going to go up the first 10 days of October and archery hunt elk up there.
Okay.
And then my kid and I, so my 16-year-old now, he and I have second season rifle deer tags in Colorado.
Nice.
So we're gonna go do that hunt and take him, and then I'll probably just round it out with that late season, late November Montana deer tag. So
awesome,
it'll be a full year.
Yeah, it sounds like a great season.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's that time of year where I'm out shooting my bow every single night and trying to get all my ducks in a row. But it's like finally starting to feel real. So
yeah. Are you doing archery for your caribou or rifle?
Yeah, archery.
Nice.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, we're gonna bow hunt. The only rifle tags I've got are, like I said, those late season Colorado deer and then Montana
cool.
deer. Yeah, I like to bow hunt.
Yeah. So we're gonna have you back maybe I don't know, maybe in the spring or something and hear about your epic season.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Please do.
Yeah, I'd love to. All right, so we got two quick, silly, funny questions. Well, one of them's kind of funny, and then I'll let you go. All right, so if you can only hunt antelope, you can only bow hunt antelope for the rest of your life, or hunt everything else with a rifle, which one are you doing?
That's tough. I think I'd bow hunt antelope.
Nice. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, for one, I just genuinely really like archery hunting. I like everything about. I love everything about bows and arrows. I love the tinkering. I love the gadgetry. Every single night or every morning, depends on what my schedule looks like. I'm at the range, shooting my bow. It's like my hour to hour and a half to really just disconnect and just think about things that matter to me, problem solve. I genuinely just really love shooting my bow. So I would say, archery, antelope, and I love antelope.
Cool, man. Last one. So would you rather wear the same pair of underwear for a week or the same pair of socks for a month?
Either or, it doesn't matter to me. I've done both.
I know that was the question of the day at my like gym today, and I was like, "Oh, underwear, definitely," and everyone else was like, "Ew."
Yeah, so that same hunt that I talked about earlier, that New Mexico elk hunt, same pair of underwear, same socks for 12 days. So
Nice.
no big deal. It doesn't faze me. I have been, guilty like mid hunt of finding like a good spot, good solitary creek, where I just strip down and wash all my clothes out and let them dry. So
yeah, man.
I've done that, but neither one of them doesn't faze me.
Cool. So I think we're kindred spirits there because I'm kind of a dirt bag. I can go days without showering. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, me as well.
All right, cool, man. Well, this has been really cool getting to know you a little bit, and thank you for all your knowledge and your help getting me on a successful draw, and so help with the antelope thing. And definitely I'll look for you in the airport heading to Alaska and have to reconnect after the season and hear about your all the tags you filled.
Yeah, let's do. And I would love to hear how your antelope hunt goes too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hopefully I'll be able to send you a couple grip and grins here in a few months.
That's one of my favorite thing about this job is like getting to talk to so many different people, and like helping them draw a permit. And then, not everybody does it, but there's definitely enough people every year that like reach back out and send me photos or send me emails.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely get a lot of satisfaction out of like seeing people, find success. And if I had like a little tiny bit in that and like helping them like find a hunt or find a permit, like ton of satisfaction. So I'd appreciate.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's really cool, man. I really appreciate, I said it already, but I really do appreciate that. I respect you a lot because, a lot of people are secretive or, really tight with their time. But for you guys listening, like Trail, like I said, you didn't know me from Adam. Took a phone call, like spent like 30 minutes at least on the phone with me, probably helping me figure out which units and stuff like that. And so really appreciate it, man. Trail's a really good guy. So where can people find you if they want to check out some of your stuff and content?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, just at Trail K11. I'm not super active. I could be way better at that, but it's weird. Like I consume social media and I look at a lot of Instagram and I like to follow along with other people. I'm just not great at it myself, like keeping up,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, and then probably the most recent stuff we just put out with GoHunt. So GoHunt YouTube page.
Cool.
If you want elk gear list, I think they just put that up yesterday. You can look at kind of my list for 2021 for elk hunting. Any kind of new gear equipment that I'm looking at bringing on the gear shop, I typically do overviews on YouTube, and then
nice.
Yeah, just Instagram, and then GoHunt YouTube page is probably the best place to keep in touch with me.
Cool. Well, thanks again, man. I really appreciate your time. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. I hope we catch up again.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks again for listening to the Hunter's Quest podcast, and make sure you stay up to date on social media at The Hunter's Quest on Instagram and The Hunter's Quest podcast on Facebook. And we'll have all kinds of photos and videos from my day-to-day, as well as stuff from the awesome guests we're having on here. As always, I'm more than happy to connect with you guys if you have questions about hunting or spiritual stuff or gear, fitness, whatever. Just drop me a line in my DMs, or you can email me at hunter@thisishuntersquest.com. If you like what you're hearing, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and leave me a rating and a review. That's really helpful. And don't forget to share with your friends. So stay tuned. Lots of cool stuff in the works, and I'm really excited to continue this quest together.